Blog Talk Radio.
This is the girl, George, and the Dragons Radio Show. That was George and the Arizona Star in Nashville, by the way. That was written by Linda Hargrove and produced by Pete Drake. And everybody was on that record back in the day, back in about 1971. So today we are going back to Nashville again, back in the 70s. We got a guy that wrote a book about those days. The name of the book is The Outlaws, or it's Outlaws, the Renegades of Nashville. We also have the world-famous Chris Gantry. He was like the king of the underground there, the king of the Outlaws back in Nashville back in the day. So we're going to talk to both of them. So we got Michael. How do you say your last name, Michael?
It's Streissguth, and it's great to be with you.
And you're in where? Syracuse, New York?
Syracuse, New York. You got it.
Oh,
you got
cool. It. And now we got Chris Gantry. Hi, Chris.
How you doing, girl? It's been a while again, hasn't it, Ben?
Yeah. So you're in Nashville, right?
I'm in Nashville as we speak, looking out the window of my apartment. Beautiful day.
So, Michael, how did you go about writing a book about Nashville?
Well, I was interested actually in Waylon Jennings, and then the publisher I was talking to said, "Well, why don't you broaden that out to the Outlaws?" And of course, when everybody thinks about the Outlaws, they think about Waylon and Willie and David Allan Coe, and of course, what I found is what you already know is that there was a whole mess of outlaws in Nashville. And so I got interested in that and got interested in that scene. So it's a story about Waylon and Willie and Chris, but it's also a story about some of the other folks who were in Nashville who were really changing the way business was done, at that time.
Yeah, like Chris Stofson and Chris Gantry and George and the Arizona Star.
Amen.
So who did you interview there? Just anybody that was walking down the street?
No. You mentioned Chris Christopherson, and spent a lot of time with him, talking about those days, and may he rest in peace, Jack Clement, and people in Billy Swan, people in Chris's band, and people in Waylon's band, So it was just it was a lot of people who were coming and going to Nashville, and a lot of people who had come who were they saw Bob Dylan. That Bob Dylan had performed and recorded in Nashville. They were watching the Johnny Cash television show, and they were figuring out that Steve Miller was recording there, and other people, and then
George
they
Harrison
were
recorded there. He did "My Sweet Lord" with Pete Drake.
Yes, there you go. So that's
why we figured that we could go there. We were not country. We were rock and roll, and we came from San Francisco. And Chris says, "Oh, you should go." Chris Dawson says, "Well, you should go to Nashville." So we went to Nashville, but we were nowhere near country. I'm actually punk. Punk is where I fit there. I'm loud and obnoxious. Country, nowhere near.
But it's hard to get away from it there in Nashville, huh?
Well, they tried to make us country, but that was kind of hard to do.
And of course, now one of the big regrets I have in writing this book is that I did not talk to Chris Gantry. So it's a real thrill to be on with him.
What do you think of the book? Did you read it?
I've read some of it. My trouble is that I don't read much. I just write books. I wrote my own book, and I write children's books. I've got lots of children's books out, and I kind of stopped reading and just continued to write, and that's it, man. And it's not disrespectful to other writers. I think other writers understand about that to a degree, maybe me a little bit more than most. So, but that's where it's at. I've read some of that.
Well, when you're a writer, it's kind of hard for you to read other people's stuff because then they'll accuse you of plagiarizing and stuff. So it's it's better to do your own thing.
Let me go ahead.
Well, I was just going to chime in and agree with you, and I'm glad that you're maintaining your own creativity, and you can't be creative if you're spending all your time reading what other people have written. So.
No, not really. Let me make a comment about this conversation. I showed up in Nashville in 1963 when it was basically the dawn of time on the Nashville scene. There was very little going on here. It was the end of an era of the old guard. And they were aware that there was a revolution starting to take place on the coasts and in Europe. They were aware of that, but they didn't want to face that was a reality and that it was going to change their music. I came from New York. I was the first Northerner to show up in this town. And in my coming here, I probably brought the seed of what Dylan was doing and the beat poets and Ginsberg and Kerouac and Corso and Orlovsky and Garcia Lorca. And I probably brought that seed with me here and started to implant that into my early songs and get involved with the counterculture, which was going on at the time. They knew that the revolution was starting and taking place. And guys like Steve Davis, Brett De Palma, who's a famous artist now, Jerry Smith, Bob Jazzy, these were the guys that started what I considered the outlaw movement. They were doing
the crotch in the armpit. Big Crotch in the Armpits was the name of their group. Big Crotch in the Armpits. They used to play with us all the time, and they're the ones that filmed the lobotomy with Jazzy and them.
Absolutely. So,
and Carrot, our drummer, was their drummer too. And we did Chicken Day. Remember Chicken Day? We did it at the college, and Carrot's up there on drums in a dress, and he's got nothing. He's got no undies on.
Yeah, well, the Carrot is in prison.
And his business is flapping in the wind because the stage is like 5 feet above the people. You can see right up his dress.
Well, that was the beginning to me of the outlaw movement. Was the counterculture that was happening in Nashville, and Johnny Cash and Waylon and Chris really hadn't been invented into that sphere yet. Chris didn't really come to Nashville until '65. Waylon was still in that Arizona state of mind and recording those kind of songs, and Johnny was getting there a little ahead of the bunch, and Willie was living out on the farm in Mount Juliet. So it started a little bit earlier than most people think, just in a different way. The seeds were planted in a different way. That's all.
Yeah, and Nashville really doesn't get the credit it deserves for having that counterculture movement. I mean, wouldn't you think? I mean, people just don't think of that when they think of Nashville.
No, they don't. Robert Altman made a movie about Nashville, but
they did have Star's character all through it. That bimbo with the torn up stockings that ends up going and singing at the end. That is Star.
It was the idea of different ideas, different concepts that were alternative to country themes and rural themes. They were the songs of the revolution. And that's what guys like Christopherson and Vince Matthews and Eddie Rabbitt and myself and Donnie Fritz and Billy Swan and John Hartford, General on My Mind, brought to the music and got songs recorded in the business, and that started to change the music. That was it.
I reprinted an old festival poster in the book, and right in the middle of it is Chris Gantry's Turkey Farm Surprise.
the rock and roll turkey farm. Everybody lived. And the first money they made, they bought little farms on the outside of Nashville, and totally did the San Francisco the Haight-Ashbury thing. All the friends came out, took off their clothes, walked around, smoked, wrote songs, and that was it. So the rock and roll turkey farm is famous. Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Let me say to you that it was great that you wrote that book, and it's important that people keep talking about this, because the state of the art and the state of the music in Nashville is so subterranean and so sub-level to the types of music and the types of songs that were being written by then, with the type of characters who sang them, that anything that can bring attention to a higher level and a higher bar to what's going on today is really where it's at. So I want to commend you on writing that book, and thank you for doing that, because it's important. It's important to me, because I've been here all these years and living through all this crap, and it's just getting worse. Everything is about dirt roads and tailgate parties, drinking beer, and girls getting wet from washing cars with hoses. And I mean, it's ridiculous. The great music has left the building. So
there needs to be another renaissance, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few of us that are trying. I'm trying in my own way. I'm making records and playing out all the time and going out on the road and blah, blah, blah. So there's a few of us, like Tom Gant and Billy Gant, one of the great outlaw writers, and there's a handful. So it's still going on.
Well, there'll be a new crops coming up, Every once in a while, the underground breaks through the ground and takes over again, and then it starts all over. It goes in cycles, you know that.
Right. You're absolutely right, George. And that is happening.
I guess there's I believe a new exhibit has just opened at the Country Music Hall of Fame called the Nashville Cats.
That's right.
I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it does shine a little bit of light on this era that we're talking about and that you were a part of.
Yes, it does, man.
Yeah.
Well, there's a movie about us that girl made, that newscaster made about us. So we weren't exactly not noticed. There's a great movie about us.
Keep going, George. We're on a roll here.
Well, I'm 70 now. I'm still doing it. I'm still out there playing. And I do this silly show every week. Outlaw country, outlaw music was really nothing more than people talking about and singing about how they felt in their hearts. They were being true to themselves with things that were going on in their lives at the time, and they wrote about it, and they weren't afraid about it. Jason Aldean lately said to me, is the most ridiculous statement anybody could ever make in music, and I like Jason, but what he said he was going through a divorce at the moment. He is, and he said to his fans, "I will try not to let my divorce seep in to my music so it spoils your appreciation of me." Well, damn, son, that's what we wrote about in the days. That is, you be upfront about it, write about it, sing about it. We want to hear that. That's the song we want to hear. We don't care about roughing it up in a truck and driving down a dirt road. We want to hear about the divorce. So, and this is what the old guys wrote about. So, come on.
Well, and you definitely, I mean, you're talking about a formula that's in place in Nashville now. And, of course, I think there was a formula in the 60s, and that's what you guys broke through as well, because you weren't writing according to anybody's recipe. You were writing according to your own, your own inclinations and your own feelings, and that paved a new road.
Well, we can't take anything away from Bob Dylan because Bob did open up that door, and it was a big door that he opened up. And even Christopherson and even everybody was affected by that. And so,
yeah, Dylan is the one that got me starting to play guitar, starting to write. Dylan is my first and main guy. And then there's Rolling Stones.
Yeah, but there were also the great writers of the late '50s, like Jack Kerouac and the Beat Poets. Man, there'd be no Bob Dylan if there wasn't an Allen Ginsberg. When Dylan read Howl and Reality Sandwiches and listened to Bob Johnson, he put those two things together.
And Woody Guthrie too.
Yeah, his style came from that. So before that, he was singing folk songs.
Yeah.
Well, it must have been amazing.
But there was also Jerry Lee Lewis. That's another one of my heroes. That's where a lot of the rhythms that I do that people call punk is actually Jerry Lee. You know, da 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 da.
The original punk.
Yeah, I love Jerry Lee.
So all this, everything comes full circle because, of course, by the people who were coming into Nashville to be creative or to study at Vanderbilt University. At one stage, Allen Ginsberg lands in Centennial Park in Nashville in the late '60s. So everything is kind of full circle.
Yeah, he came here to visit a friend of mine named Jack Martin. The Martins were an old Southern family who lived on Ackland Avenue in Hillsborough Village. And
is that Leo's family? Leo?
Yeah, that was Lee's older brother who passed away in Europe. And Jack was Allen Ginsberg's great friend and might have even been a lover. And he came here to visit Jack, and Jack had that. He was like the prototype for the first beatnik that ever arrived in Nashville. He was born here, but yet he had that beat Neil Cassidy thing going on. He was the real deal, and I was fortunate to be able to run with him because it helped stoke the coals in myself to be able to get freed up to be as exuberant about what I was doing as I could be. And so
that was part of Big Crotch in the Armpits, wasn't it, Jack?
Well, yeah. Well, no, that was Lee Martin, the big heavyset brother.
Lee was in our play. He was in the lobotomy. The second time we did it, we made him the patient. First time they wrote it and they made me the patient. And the second time I said, you ain't going to beat on me again. So I got Leo because he wanted to do it anyway, and everyone liked to beat on Leo anyway. So he was
okay. But Big Crotch was Steve Davis, who at 18 years old wrote "Take Time to Know Her" by Percy Sledge. He wrote it when he was 8. Yeah, he wrote it when he was 18, and he was the lead singer for Big Crotch in the Armpits. And I've been talking to him lately. He's still here in Nashville. He's reclusive, but he's a great songwriter. He's just one of those guys, and he is one of the initial founders and starters of that seed that planted the outlaw movement here in Nashville.
Well, those guys were crazy. They were like Frank Zappa. They would take a piece of paper, from the butcher or something, put it on the floor, and put their dogs in paint and have them walk across the floor, and then they would draw lines, and that's the music they would play. They were fucking insane. They called their dogs the Juggy Duggies. And they had their own language and everything, and the German was called the carrot, I guess, because he had the IQ of a carrot, they said. And the dog was called Chicken. That's why they had Chicken Day. It was the dog's Chicken Day.
The dog was called Lippy Duggies because he had a lower lip.
The Juggy Duggies. The Juggy Duggies. But the one dog was called Chicken.
And Carrot is in jail.
He is. Why?
He committed a heinous crime. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to say it, but he's been in prison for a long time.
I was wondering why I couldn't find him on the web. I've been looking for him.
No,
that's terrible. I love Carrot.
Yeah, me too. He's in the penitentiary.
Oh, too bad.
Sucks.
I've known a few killers in my life.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Kids were in jail for murder.
I was going to ask you something, Chris. One of the things I wrote about in the book was this night after the taping of one of Johnny Cash's TV shows, and there was a bunch of people got together for dinner. Dennis Hopper and I wonder if you were there according to the
I was.
And that must have been something. I mean, to have such a gathering of people, and I guess at the end of the night, Hopper said he toasted Christopherson and Cash for bringing everybody together.
Yes, he did. There's a funny story that goes with that. At that dinner that night, he said to me, he said, Chris, when you have some free time, why don't you come out to my place in Taos, New Mexico, at the Mabel Dodge Lujan farm. So, of course, Dennis was an idol of mine and had been since I was a little kid watching him on television. And I ran home. I ran home and got my bags packed and my guitar. I jumped in my truck and started driving that night, and I beat Dennis to his house. When he came in 2 days later, I was ensconced in the guest house and waiting for him in the driveway. It was funny. It was a typical crazy, wacky thing young guys do, but it was funny.
And did you go down there when they were making that movie?
Yeah, he was editing the last movie that Christopherson wrote all those songs for, and Bucky Wilkins was down there writing songs with Dennis in South America, and they were editing that film at the place when I got there.
Wow.
Did you go down to where they were making the movie when they were making that?
No, I didn't go to that. That was
too bad. That would have been fun.
Happening. I met Dennis for the first time here in Nashville when he came here.
And I guess that night you sang your song Pentagon Bygone.
Yeah, I did. And there's a funny story with that, too, is because Joni Mitchell was there also. Mm-hmm. And Joni was writing very flowery, beautiful songs, and Pentagon Bygone was this really rough and ragged tune, and I had been up for a few days and smoking a lot, and I spit it out like a gorilla on crack, and she looked at me like I was some low-life, crazy human being. It was a funny night, but
you were kind of punk, Chris.
Dennis
was
never
way
forgot
before
that.
punk ever had a name, but you were. Motormouth. For fact, now the thing is all this, with the gears and all that kind of stuff. And that album you have, Motormouth, with the gears in the mouth, look just like what's happening right now.
Absolutely. That kind of was the first.
It's steampunk, they call it. That's what it is, steampunk. Yeah. That album cover could fit right in right now with the steampunk.
Well, I cut up my I had a motorcycle and had motorcycle magazines, so I just cut the engines up and pasted them into the mouth, and it looked pretty good, so I used it as the album cover. So.
It's a great album
good, man. Well, Georgie, I'm still doing it. I'm writing every day and making records and trying to be, true to myself and not be an asshole and just trying to help people. I'm trying to help people. That's what you do when you're an old guy like me. You help as many people as you can.
Yeah. How about you, Michael? What are you doing? You got a new book coming, or Outlaws 2, or what?
Well, I just I mentioned that exhibit that's at the Hall of Fame in Nashville, and there's a little book that went along with that, and so they asked me to do an essay about the Johnny Cash television show, which had gotten a lot of people excited. But I'm also working on a film. I'm working on a documentary film about a band called the Nighthawks, and they're from around D.C., the D.C. area, kind of a blues rock band. And they've been around for about 40 years, and it's really a movie about how, keeping it together for 40 years and what that takes. So anyway, that's what I'm working on.
Okay, it was great talking to you. We're out of time, my dears. So we'll look you up on the web. Both of you got Facebook sites, so we can find you there. This is the Girl George and the Dragons Radio Show. Saying,
thanks, George. Michael.
Thanks, guys.
See you later, alligator.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody's crazy but me. Everybody's nutty as can be. Forming gangs, waging wars, paint the names upon the door. You against me, us versus them. No communicado, don't give a damn. Our kids in the street are the gross casualty now. Everybody's crazy but me. Everybody's nutty as can be. Raping the oceans with derricks for oil, lusting for money, divvy the spoil, build bigger bombs, store 'em all up. More bombs, they won't take our stuff. Push the wrong button, we're all history now.